Qantas's 90th birthday celebrations have been marred by another mid-air incident. This time, a 747 flight to Argentina with 220 people on board was forced to return to Sydney because of smoke in the cockpit, caused by an electrical problem. This is the fourth incident since November the 4th, when a Qantas A380 was forced to make an emergency landing in Singapore after one of its engines blew out. Investigations continue into what caused the engine to explode. Meanwhile, all 6 of the Qantas A380 fleet remained grounded, and it's not yet clear when they'll fly again. Thea De Chaos reports.
At this stage, everything is secure. The aircraft is flying safely, and we'll get back to you very shortly with further information. Thank you for your patience.
It's been almost 2 weeks since Qantas flight QF32 left Singapore with 466 people bound for Sydney when one of its engines exploded in mid-air, forcing the plane back to Changi Airport. While the entire Qantas A380 fleet remains grounded, it's only now that we're learning about how close the plane came to disaster.
It was pretty close. It would be as close as you'd want to get in these circumstances because an uncontained failure of that size of the engine is not planned for. It penetrated the wing, it caused fuel leaks, it disrupted systems. So they were faced with a very difficult situation.
Businesswoman Jenny Barlow was sitting in row 54, just above the wing.
It was probably only about 10 minutes into flight. There was 2 very loud bangs, boom, boom, quite definite consecutive ones.
What did they sound like?
I'll be honest, I immediately thought something had left the plane.
Something had indeed left the plane. One of the 4 Trent 900 engines had exploded and debris had hit the aircraft and fallen onto the Indonesian island of Batam, narrowly missing a school.
When you have the failure, you get a message on the screen in the centre, and this had something between 50 plus messages appeared, and they cascade down the screen, and there's lots of alarms and noises on the flight deck as all these things occur. Luckily, it's prioritised, so you deal with the first item, which is the engine failure.
For almost 2 hours, the plane circled while the crew responded to the information detailing the extent of the problems.
There, we tried to shut the engine down, and as you are aware, the engine did not shut down. Now, that is not a design feature. That was unusual.
They couldn't shut down the number 1 engine. It looks like they've lost some of the leading edges, which are the devices on the front of the wing that allow the aeroplane to fly slower.
Richard Woodward is the Vice President of the International Pilots Association and an A380 pilot.
Some of the gear on the aircraft lost the anti-skid system, which is the thing that stops the wheels from locking. So, in other words, the aeroplane's prone to blowing tyres on landing. So that's the sort of problems they were facing, amongst many others.
It was only when she disembarked that Jenny Barlow realised how close she came to disaster.
I'll be honest, looking back at the plane, thinking we were so fortunate. And you know what? It's trust in the finish. And I am very, very trusting of Qantas that they would bring us safely back down and we would get home.
The incident has led to a worldwide inspection of the Rolls-Royce Trent 900 engines, which are also fitted to Singapore and Lufthansa A380 Airbus fleets.
We've regarded this issue as a significant issue. You couldn't take any more dramatic action than grounding the A380 fleet, and we've still kept the A380 fleet grounded since then.
On Friday, Rolls-Royce issued a statement saying the failure was specific to the Trent 900. It was confined to a specific component in the turbine area of the engine, which caused an oil fire, which then led to the release of the intermediate pressure turbine disc. Fixing the problem will take time and the cost will be substantial.
We'll see the situation where these engines will be taken off the wings of the aeroplanes, put back through a workshop and have an urgent repair kit put in it. Rolls-Royce will be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week to do that. It's amazing how fast the industry can turn that around and do that, but these engines are big, they're expensive, and there's not that many of them in the world, so it's a major refit program. It could take weeks, it could take months.
I would certainly assume that most of that has been covered by Rolls-Royce in terms of the immediate fixing of the problem. In terms of liability for any financial losses incurred as a result of that, those issues are always a lot more complicated.
Qantas has 6 A380s and so far oil has been found in 3 engines. Rolls-Royce is one of only 2 suppliers of A380 engines to fleets across the world, and according to aviation analyst Peter Harbison, the company hasn't handled the crisis well.
Again, it's early days to know what the impact will be on Rolls-Royce, but it hasn't come out of it from an industry point of view looking particularly good. There are a lot on the airline side who suggest that they could have been a lot more candid.
Whether Qantas sues Rolls-Royce for loss of earnings is still up in the air, but as it celebrates its 90th anniversary, its flagship aircraft remains grounded indefinitely.
Obviously, things are still evolving with Rolls-Royce and Airbus. We have to do more checks, and this will take as long as it needs to take for us to be absolutely confident. So I'm not going to rush anybody. I'm not going to give a deadline on it. I've got to make sure it's absolutely right before these aircraft start flying again.
In the short term, aviation analysts say Qantas may be able to absorb the cost of keeping its billion-dollar fleet out of the air.
Because Qantas has actually had quite a lot of spare capacity not being totally utilised in recent months, thanks to the global meltdown and last year's slowness, it's been able to fill a lot of the gaps, if not all of the gaps, fairly quickly. And in that respect, the leakage of revenue is probably not substantial.
The Australian Transport and Safety Bureau investigation into QF32 may take up to 2 years, but an interim report is expected in the next few months.
Remember, this is a worldwide problem. The fact that Qantas's engine blew up is just the fact it was Qantas happened to be flying at the time. It could have been equally Lufthansa or Singapore Airlines. So it's a world problem. They're all waiting to see what we do, what's found.
That report from Thea de Chaos.